In today's video, we talk about the difference in peaking from bikini and bodybuilding. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Revelia from ProPhysique.com, and this weekend we had a very interesting thing happen. I had 6 competitors compete across 4 different divisions, and so I got the idea to discuss what it looks like when you're peaking different people from different divisions, because as we know, there's different guidelines and rules within each organization. And the first and most important thing I want to talk about when it comes to peaking is peak week is not a magic period where you erase all the mistakes that you've made during prep. You need to come in to the peaking process already stage ready. All we're trying to do the final week is tweak things to ensure that you look your best on stage. That's the goal, right? So number 1 with peaking, be stage lean, be shredded, be whatever body composition you need to be ahead of time going into the process, right? Then we can have some fun and make sure that things are going right. But beyond that, I wanted to talk about the difference in some of the organizations. We're talking about NPC Bikini, talking about natural bodybuilding, we're talking about classic physique, men's physique, even figure. So I didn't have anybody competing in figure this week, but I did. If you watched the video a couple weeks ago from the Orlando Europa, you saw Joe Kartheiser, who did figure. So, but for today, what I'm going to focus on mostly is bikini and bodybuilding / men's physique, because those are probably the 2 biggest differences. For something like figure, I would say that's closer to a bodybuilding. And here's why. With bikini, the goal when you get on stage is not to be crazy, vascular, shredded, have a bunch of detail. You're not flexing for the impact of trying to look more muscular than the person next to you. With bikini, it's all about having the right lines, having the right detail, the right look, looking beautiful, but also looking athletic. With bodybuilding, it's about that gnarly, gristly conditioning with muscle popping. Vascularity looks great. When you hit your poses, you want everything to pop out of your skin, right? And so much of that comes down to just being ready ahead of time. But what I thought I would do was just give like 2 very basic explanations on how I might approach things a little bit differently between a bikini competitor and a bodybuilder. Now again, the most important thing is paying attention to what goes on during contest prep, making sure you're ready early, and then your coach will decide how to handle this process. This is just a basic layout of how I kind of generalize things, but even within this, I have huge differences, and maybe I'll discuss some of those as we're going through this, but this is just going to be my general guidelines. However, what I'll do is if during contest prep I notice someone responds really good to high refeed days or 2 refeed days, things like that, or they look better 2 or 3 days after a refeed day, I might change around the order of the carbs and stuff like that. So I'm also not going to do a lot of talking about sodium and water just because those are kind of specific to your needs. So I'm just going to talk about like the ranges, because let's say someone takes in a gallon of water a day on average and someone takes in 2 gallons of water a day on average. We're only going to talk in terms of what you should be doing according to what your normal day is like. Should you be going up or down or something like that? Same with sodium. I'm a big believer in using a lot of sodium, but some people keep sodium very low throughout their diet. Especially in bodybuilding, I think that's a big mistake. Sodium can be very valuable from day to day, and just transporting glycogen, just hydrating the body. So don't restrict sodium, don't restrict water. During peak week, we just want to manage them. We just want to use what you're doing. So let's go over the first one. So as you can see, what I've done here is I talk about the weekend prior. So this is all assuming that the show is on a Saturday. That's not always the case. There's Sunday shows, there's Friday shows, hell, there's Thursday shows. Depends on the size of the competition that you're in. But what I like to do the weekend prior to peak week is take 2 days off of training. And mostly what I like to do there is allow the body to refresh. You see, in contest prep, when you've been dieting for 16 weeks, 18 weeks, 20 weeks, you're constantly in a state of muscle soreness. Your body is never really getting a chance to recover. We're constantly training muscles, overtraining, doing cardio, so we're not really getting that recovery. You add into that some posing practice that's happening during the end of contest prep, and boom, you have a recipe for constant inflammation. So what I like to do the weekend prior is take 2 days off of training. And the reason I like to do that is just to give that body a chance to refresh, muscles to kind of restore. And then we're going to go into the week feeling better, and we're going to be ready to absorb all the nutrients that we're going to be getting. So what I like to do on the weekend before is do double cardio. Sounds kind of evil, but if someone is in a really good place, then maybe I'll only do a single cardio session. But sometimes I just like to push people on that final weekend, have them do a morning and an evening cardio session. They're already adapted to contest prep, the rigors of it. They've already been going for this long. They're obviously very well conditioned at this stage. And I just feel like there's like the weekend before, you got a little momentum, you got a little adrenaline. It just feels like everything's a little easier when you get closer to the show because you can kind of smell it. So you can really push yourself hard. So maybe we make a little bit of progress in that last weekend with conditioning. All right. Then we get to Monday. So we're going to go through Monday all the way to show day, and we'll talk about it right here. So let's start with Bikini. So with Bikini, what you see here is the weekend before the depletion that I'll talk about. Now again, these are very general numbers, but what these represent is 130 protein, 40 fat, and 70 carb. That would be the weekend before. Now, when you're doing double cardio on calories that low, you're going to see a bit of a depletion. You're going to see some flatness, and that's what we're expecting on Monday when we come into the gym. Unless we've had a lot of carbs that day, we're probably going to be a little bit flat. Now for Bikini, I'm not going to go ultra aggressive. Again, the goal of Bikini is not to come onto stage looking crazy, shredded, vascular. What I want for Bikini is I want to understand what happens when I give this person 200 grams of carbs. Again, this is not specific to anyone. This is just a general rule. This person would probably be dieting on around 100 grams of carbs. So if you look here on my Thursday numbers, that's about back to baseline for this person. So this person was dieting on around 100 grams of carbs. So they're going to have a 200 gram carb basic refeed. And then we're going to taper carbs down. Now, why do I do that? Well, based on how they respond each day, I'm going to pay attention to that when they look their best, and I'm going to use Friday as a variable, a swing day. So as you see here, I have 70 to 180 grams of carbs for a person that's dieting on 180. So based on how they look, how they respond, we are going to adjust Friday quite a bit, and also pay very much attention on show day to when we should be doing things. What I like to do on show day is get up really early. I don't like if someone has a 10 a.m. prejudging for them to get up at their typical time, like 7 a.m., have one meal. I'll have them get up 6 hours before prejudging, 6 hours, and start with smaller meals, and then I'll have them do a little bit of training or posing after each meal to ensure that the food is being digested and pulled into the muscles. So show day is going to be a lot of paying attention to how you're looking and feeling and staying in close contact with your coach. Now, Bikini, as you see, pretty moderate. We're going up to 200. We're coming down to 100 over 4 days. We're paying attention. For training, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I like hard training. I like training just like it's been throughout prep. We don't add any intensity. I don't want any really sore muscles. We're not adding any drop sets, but I like training to be like 80 to 85% of what you would normally do. I want you getting in real workouts. Thursday and Friday are going to be kind of whole body circuits. And the reason for that is I want the food that you're eating to continue to digest. I want the training to continue. I want the body still processing things in the same way and filling out, pulling things into the muscles. I don't want to just stop training for that reason. Now let's talk a little bit about bodybuilding. Now we're going to be a little bit more aggressive. As you can see, this guy was dieting on 230 grams of carbs a day prior to peak week. That's a lot higher than a typical female competitor would be. There's some that are high, but 230 grams of carbs is roughly what I get down to. I might even have some days around 200 carbs during prep, but I just wanted to give you guys an example. And so what I did was, during depletion, 160 grams of carbs for 2 days in a row, along with some double cardio. You're going to get a very flat, probably gnarly look Monday morning, which is what we want, because we're going up to 380 grams of carbs. Now, I didn't talk about protein, but protein starts pretty low when the carbs are high, much like a refeed, and then I'll kind of raise the protein up as the carbs come down. Same thing with the fats. On Monday, I like to keep fats a little bit higher because fats do aid in digestion. I'll use things like flaxseed oil or just make sure that the carbs are digesting properly. So I don't want to go too low on fats when the carbs are too high, just because I want to make sure we're getting digestion. Plus, it's a little bit hard to keep fats really low when carbs are that high. So here's 380 grams of carbs. I've had people do much more than that, but we're just using a typical example of something moderate because I don't know the specifics of how this person has responded to refeeds over the course of contest prep. And most likely when we get to a peaking phase like this, I've already kind of tested out like higher carb days, double carbs, back-to-back days, seeing how that goes. So as you see, we start at 380 carbs and we taper down each day until we get to this 230 carb day. Now Friday is the biggest variable swing day. based on how this person responded, they'll tell me when they looked their best, when they had the best pump, when they had the most fullness in the gym. We will be looking at 200 to 400 grams of carbs. The 200 grams of carbs would be if they still kind of feel spilled over, if taking in, this is well over 1,000 grams of carbs right here. If taking in those carbohydrates has kind of caused some fluid retention under the skin, then we pull back. However, I find that to be very rarely true. If someone is truly stage conditioned, you just don't spill very easily, especially when you're training hard during the week, because we're still training hard. Now we're getting to the final day. So based on how they responded this week, we may be up to 400 grams of carbs. I probably won't go more than 5 or 10% over what we did Monday, just because I don't know, unless I know this person. Again, these are conservative numbers for someone that I haven't peaked before. This is just a basic outline. So what I'm going to do on the day of the show for a bodybuilder is a little bit different. I'm going to make sure that they're bringing sodium, that they're bringing plenty of carbohydrates that digest really easily, things like jelly, maybe some candy, maybe some Gatorade, because I want them to, every time they eat, have a meal, let it digest for a few minutes, and then get down, do some push-ups, do some lateral dumbbell raises, do some dumbbell curls, and I want to see veins coming out. I want to see them filling out. The last thing I want on show day is for someone to not be able to get a pump. That just tells me that the body is not ready to go. And usually on show day, when we've had this many carbs, if that's the case, it's going to be one of two things. Either your body is not used to being awake at that time and it's not waking up, it's not getting going, or sodium and hydration are low. I find that even in today's age, most people like to restrict water on show day. So even though I tell them to drink, 16 to 20 ounces of water every hour or 2 hours based on who it is, that person will see other people not having water since Thursday, and they'll kind of get in their head and think water equals bad. And what will happen to this person if they do that is they won't be able to get that crazy fullness and vascularity until they go out to lunch after prejudging. They'll drink a bunch of water, come back to the mic show and look better. Sometimes that's sodium and water, and what I like to do with someone in that situation is for the next show, we'll actually have something like a burger fries, a Chipotle meal, something that's got a lot of sodium in it, and we'll drink more water and we'll get a little more aggressive. Again, this is all a learning process. So you see there's two different approaches, but there's actually hundreds of different approaches even within this. Even with last week, with having a pro bikini competitor and having a master's natural bodybuilding competitor, looking at every step of contest prep, how things responded, looking at our history of peaking together. I have some people that I peaked for 10 different shows, and some people it's the first show. The most important variable is getting stage ready early. The second most important variable is paying attention to how the body has responded throughout contest prep. And from there, then we can start talking about when people looked good. We can talk about our experiences in past shows, what meals maybe had some magic influence on us. Sometimes I really like to get a meal in, like I said, like a Chipotle bowl, because it's very predictable. You can go eat something out, get a higher sodium meal, and not feel like you're risking it by eating like a meal that's really high in fat, or something like a pizza, something with dairy. I don't like dairy in peak week. I know some people eat dairy throughout prep, and that's fine, but I just find that we want to eliminate foods that have any possibility for inflammation or intolerance, right? So again, guys, hopefully this was helpful. I know it's not specific. I know it's not specific to you, but I just wanted to give a little bit of insight because I was getting a lot of questions about what I do during peak week for my clients. So this is kind of a rough outline, and then within this we'll have some variables. Hell, I've even had some people do a very high backload approach, short, crazy backload approach. So it just completely depends on the person, our experiences together, and understanding of how their body works. Anyway, guys, it's Monday. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. I think tomorrow's video is going to be a fun one because Chad and I are going to, I don't know if I should give it away, but we're going to go eat out today, and the video is going to be based around that since I still don't have a freaking kitchen. All right, guys, have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.